I'm 19 now, but this started back when I was 15, and honestly, it still doesn't feel real. Some things just don't compute, no matter how much time passes. I thought I came from a normal family. My mom and I weren't besties, but we were close enough that I never imagined she could do something so cold. Back then, it was just the two of us. My dad died in a car accident when I was 9. I don't remember everything about him, but I remember enough. He was kind, stable, the type of person who made you feel safe just by being in the room. When he passed, it felt like our little world cracked open, but we still had each other. My mom held it together for a long time, until she didn't. I started noticing changes in her when I hit 14. She got distant, not in a depressed way exactly, more like distracted. She was always texting, always laughing into her phone. I'd ask her what was going on, and she'd just smile and say grown-up stuff. I figured she was finally dating again, which made sense. I wanted her to be happy, but it wasn't a guy. It was a woman named Nadine. I found out by accident. One night I walked into the kitchen and caught them slow dancing to some old 80s song, completely lost in their own little world. My mom laughed when she saw me and just said something like, "Guess the secret's out?" She told me she and Nadine had been best friends since college, but that things had changed recently. "We're trying something," that's how she explained. I didn't care that it was a woman. What I cared about was how suddenly I wasn't part of her something. At first it was little things. She'd forget to make dinner, or she'd bail on our usual movie nights. Then she started canceling everything we used to do together. Nadine? She was everywhere. At our house, constantly. Touching things like they belonged to her. Drinking wine in my dad's chair. Repainting walls that never needed painting. And she had a daughter. Kayla. Kayla was my age, but we weren't close. We'd met a few times before. She was the kind of girl who always had perfect nails and perfect hair and said babe way too much for someone not being ironic. At first she was polite enough, but something shifted. My mom started treating her like family. No, like a favorite. The kind of favorite you'd think only existed in those cliché soap operas. And then one day, Kayla moved in. No warning, no conversation. I just came home from school and found her stuff in the guest room. My mom acted like it was no big deal. "Just until Nadine finds a new apartment," she said. But Nadine never left, and neither did Kayla. That's when the switch really flipped. A week after Kayla moved in, my mom swapped out my bedroom door. Yeah, my door. She said it wasn't closing properly, and that she'd been meaning to replace it anyway, except the new one didn't have a lock, and it wasn't new. It was clearly the old door from the storage. It still had pencil scribbles on the inside when I was a kid. I knew it because I'd written them. Meanwhile, Kayla got a full bedroom makeover. Fresh paint, brand new bed, vanity desk, even LED lights strung around the ceiling. It looked like something straight off Pinterest. And it was my mom who did. She spent the entire weekend with Kayla. They were planning a dorm room. I wasn't even invited. The weirdest? My mom started calling her sweetheart. That used to be my... She hadn't said it to me in months. I thought maybe I was imagining. I told myself I was being jealous, dramatic. But when I came home one and found Kayla sitting at my spot at the kitchen table, my actual spot, where I've sat since I was 6, it clicked. My plate, my mug, even my stupid little napkin with a cat on it, and no one said a word. So I started testing. I didn't say good morning. Neither did they. I stopped texting my mom to tell her I was home from school. She didn't notice. One night, I stayed out until midnight. No call, no missed messages, just silence. I even forgot to show up for dinner. They didn't ask where I was. At that point, I realized something horrifying. I was being erased, quietly, piece by piece. And no one, not even my own mother, seemed to care. I tried talking to her. I pulled her aside one evening while Kayla and Nadine were watching TV, and I asked her what was going on. I asked if I'd done something, if she was mad at me. She barely looked up from her phone. Just said, "You're being sensitive again." Again. Like I was the problem. Like I always made things about me. That night, I cried myself to sleep for the first time in years. But I didn't let it show. I got really good at hiding it, because something in my gut told me this wasn't just a phase. It wasn't going to get better. They didn't want me there. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't have guessed, was that they were already planning something much worse. Something that would change everything. It started with missing things. At first, I thought I was being forgetful. Normal stuff. A sweater I swore I left on my chair gone. My favorite water bottle vanished. Then books started disappearing. I figured maybe Kayla borrowed them without asking. Annoying, but not the end of the world. Until my sketchbook went missing. That one stung. I'd been drawing in it since I was 13. It had everything. Unfinished pieces. Old poems. Dumb teenage thoughts. Stuff I'd never show anyone. It wasn't valuable, not really, but it was mine. I tore my room apart looking for it. I even checked the trash. Then I found it. In Kayla's room. She hadn't even hidden it. It was sitting on her desk, open, with a page half ripped out. One of my drawings. Ruined. She'd drawn over it in highlighter and wrote something in huge letters across the top. Try harder. My blood went cold. I took the sketchbook, stormed out, and waited until my mom got home. I showed it to her, flipping to the vandalized page, expecting some kind of reaction. Maybe even just a "why did she do this?" but she barely glanced at it. She just said, "It's not that serious. She's trying to connect with you by defacing my art." I told her I wanted Kayla to stay out of my room. Her response? She suggested I start keeping my door shut, which was ironic, considering she was the one who the lock. That's when I started realizing something. This wasn't just about Kayla. My mom she was colder, sharper. She'd built this imaginary version of the difficult daughter, the moody teenager, and now everything I did just confirmed. If I stood up for myself, I was overreacting. If I stayed quiet, I was being rude. No matter what I did, I was wrong. And Kayla? She was perfect. She got praised for making boxed mac and cheese. My mom called her brilliant for passing her driver's test. When she got a part-time job at a coffee shop, there were balloons waiting for her in the kitchen. When I landed an internship in the city library, nothing, not a word. I tried to ignore, to stay out of the way, but the more I backed off, the worse it was like they were trying to break me down slowly, gaslight me into thinking I was the issue, and part of me was starting to believe it. Then, overheard something. I was coming down the stairs to grab water when I heard Nadine and my mom talking in the living room. They didn't hear me. TV was on low, and their voices were barely above a whisper, but I caught a sentence I'll never. "She's almost out of." I froze. My mom's voice, calm, like she was talking about the weather. Then Nadine laughed and said, "It's so much easier now that we have Kayla." That was the moment things shifted. I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know what they were planning. But I knew one thing for sure. They were trying to get rid of me. After that night, I couldn't unhear it. "She's almost out of the picture." I kept repeating it in my head, trying to make sense of it, trying to convince myself it meant something else. Maybe they were talking about Nadine's ex? Or some drama from work? But no, I knew they were talking about me. I started watching them. Everything became more calculated after that. Kayla started copying me, down to the way I styled my hair, the playlists I made, even my handwriting. She went from pretending I didn't exist to acting like she was me. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Then she showed up to school wearing my old denim jacket, the one I thought I lost in the laundry months ago. She smiled when she saw me looking. A slow, smug smile, the kind that doesn't need words. And things at home kept spiraling. My mom stopped buying groceries I liked, said we needed to cut back, even though she was taking Kayla out to restaurants and getting her eyelash extensions. My laundry would mysteriously go missing, until I found my favorite clothes balled up and shoved in the corner of the garage, reeking of mildew. I told myself to hold on, just a few more months. I'd been accepted into a university 3 hours away, and I couldn't wait to leave. It became my light at the end of the tunnel. Just survive the summer. Don't cause waves. Stay invisible, but they were always one step ahead. One day in late June, I came home from work and saw my acceptance pack ripped to pieces on the kitchen counter. I froze. My heart started pounding. It was shredded, like someone took scissors to it. I ran to my room to grab the envelope I'd hidden in my desk. Gone. I burst into the kitchen and demanded. Kayla looked at her phone, completely phased, and said, "You probably misplaced." My mom didn't glance at me. "Never saw anything," she said. "Fairly slept." I stared at the ceiling, playing every moment back in my mind, wondering what their endgame was. If they were trying to make me leave on my own, they were doing a damn good job. But a few days later, I found something that changed everything. I was doing chores, one of the few things still expected of me, when I accidentally knocked over Nadine's purse in the hallway. Her wallet spilled out, along with a stack of envelopes. Most were boring, but one had my mom's handwriting on. I knew I shouldn't have looked, but I did. Inside was a letter, a typed letter folded neatly, but it wasn't addressed to Nadine. It was addressed to a family court judge, and it was a custody appeal. Except it wasn't about me. It was from my mom, saying she was filing for guardianship of Kayla. I sat on the floor for a long time holding that letter. It didn't make sense. My mom wasn't married to Nadine. There was no legal reason for her to need guardianship of Kayla, unless Nadine was planning to. I read every word twice. It was written formally, like a lawyer helped draft it. My mom described Kayla as a stabilizing presence in the home and a daughter in all but blood. She called herself the more capable provider, and said Nadine was transitioning to a new phase of life that will limit her availability as a full-time parent. It sounded like Nadine was giving her. My mom was stepping in to replace me. I didn't even know that was possible, but the more I thought about it, it made sense. Nadine had been quietly packing. She'd taken down her framed pictures from the living room. Her car was missing from the driveway more and more, and I hadn't seen her sleep over. The whole setup was being rearranged, like a puzzle where my piece didn't fit anymore. I put the letter back exactly how I found it, careful not to leave a trace. But inside, something snapped. I wasn't going to be erased quietly. That night, I started making copies of everything. Emails, mail, bank statements I could find, even screenshots of text messages on my mom's iPad that she stupidly left unlocked. She and Nadine had been talking about this for months. It was all there in black and white. They called me difficult, said I was emotionally unstable, that I'd become a source of stress and conflict since my dad died. They wrote about me like I was some broken project they'd tried to fix and eventually gave up on. I felt sick. There was one text that hit me the hardest. My mom had sent it to Nadine just 2 weeks ago. It read, "She's fading out on her own. Honestly, it's better this way. That's what I was to her now. A slow disappearance. Kayla? She was everything I wasn't. Perfect, obedient, smiling. The blank slate my mom could mold into whatever daughter she wanted. She didn't want to raise me any. She wanted a do-over. She found one. But I wasn't going to let them win. I didn't know what I was going to do yet. But I knew I couldn't trust anyone in that house. I couldn't confront them. Not without risking them kicking me out before I was ready. I had to act smart, careful, quiet. Because if they wanted me gone, I had to beat them to it. For the next week, I became someone else. I played the part. Quiet, obedient, invisible. I made my bed every day, washed the dishes before anyone asked, even complimented Kayla's hideous butterfly nails like I meant it. I smiled, nodded, laughed at the right times. My mom even commented it was nice to see me calming down. Calming down. I wanted to scream, but I kept my face still, my tone soft, because while they thought I was fading, I was planning. Every night I snuck into the bathroom with my phone and uploaded every screenshot, every letter, every email I'd copied to a private cloud account only I could access. I backed everything up twice. I wasn't just collecting evidence, I was building a record. Because the second I was out of that house, I wasn't looking back, but I was going to tell my story. Then something unexpected happened. I got an email from the university. Not the acceptance one. They'd sent that months ago. This one was about my scholarship. The email was a withdrawal notice. Apparently, someone had contacted the school saying I was no longer planning to attend, that I'd decided to stay home due to family concerns. It was signed electronically, by me. Only it wasn't me. I hadn't sent anything. I felt the blood drain from my face. I emailed the university back immediately, explaining there had to be a mistake, that I never declined. It took 2 days of calls and follow-ups, but eventually someone in the registrar's office confirmed what I already suspected. The IP address used to send the cancellation, it traced back to my house. They wouldn't give me more than that, but I didn't need the detail. It was Kayla, or Nadine, or worse, my own mother. They were cutting off my exit, literally trying to trap me there. But the university told me one last thing that changed everything. If I showed up in person with my ID before the end of the week, they could still process my enrollment. It was Wednesday. I had 3 days. That night, I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding. I had to get out, not just leave. I had to vanish. No goodbye, no confrontation, just gone. But I needed one last thing before I could go, and it was locked in my mom's bedroom drawer. My mom always kept a small silver key on her necklace. She wore it every day, tucked under her shirt like it was just jewelry, but I knew it was for the top drawer of her nightstand, the one she kept locked ever since Kayla moved in, and I knew exactly what was inside. My birth certificate, my social security card, my dad's documents, everything I'd need to enroll, open a bank account, or start over. Everything that tied me to my identity, and everything she could use to control it. So I waited. I waited until Friday morning. Nadine had already moved her stuff out, just like I suspected. There was no goodbye, no announcement, just an empty space where her coat used to hang. My mom was tense all morning, snappy. She didn't even notice me watching her from the hallway. She was preparing for something, probably court, probably Kayla. I knew I had one shot. That afternoon, I faked a headache and told my mom I needed a nap. She didn't care. She just muttered something about taking Kayla to her appointment and left the house in a rush. I had exactly 45 minutes. As soon as the door closed, I went straight to her room. The necklace was hanging on her mirror. She must have taken it off in the chaos. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped the key twice. But eventually I got the drawer open. Inside was a manila folder, fat and messy, filled with everything I expected, and more. I flipped through it quickly. Birth certificates, yes. My dad's death certificate, my school records. Then I saw a document labeled Temporary Guardianship Transfer, Kayla Monroe. It had my mom's signature on it, dated last week. She wasn't trying to become Kayla's guardian anymore. She already was. I stood there, frozen, with a horrifying realization creeping over me. This wasn't a replacement. This was a full-blown identity shift. The school records weren't just mine. There were duplicates. My name crossed out, replaced with Kayla's. New printouts, new email addresses, new passwords, all made to match my history. As if Kayla was being slotted into my life. Same age, same GPA, same clubs, same story. They weren't just kicking me out, they were absorbing me. I shoved every document into my backpack and ran to my room, grabbed my duffel, stuffed it with clothes, and double-checked I had everything. ID, phone, charger. My heart was thudding so loud I couldn't hear anything else. Then I did the dumbest thing I could have done in that moment. I hesitated. I looked around my room, my real room, and thought, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm making this into something it's not? What if my mom does love me, and I'm just too angry to see it? And that's when the front door slammed. They were back, and everything exploded within 5 minutes. I shoved the drawer shut and sprinted to my room, but I wasn't fast enough. I'd barely zipped up my duffel when I heard my mom's voice from downstairs. She wasn't talking. She was yelling. At first, I couldn't make out the words, just the sharpness in her tone, the kind of tone that vibrates through the walls and sticks in your chest like a warning. Then I heard my name, clear and loud. Then footsteps, fast ones, coming up the stairs. I shoved my backpack under my arm, heart hammering, and grabbed the duffel just as my door burst open. My mom stood there, eyes wild, not crying, not scared, livid. She saw the bag, the envelope poking from the top. Her face changed in an instant. She didn't even try to fake concern. Just walked in and slammed the door behind her like she owned the air I was breathing, and then she said it. "You weren't supposed to see that. That was it. No excuses. No, let's talk. Just the truth, laid out flat like it was already too late to fix it." She looked at me like I was the problem she thought she'd already solved. I asked her, calmly, what she meant. She didn't answer. She just started accusing. Said I was violating her privacy, that I was meddling in things that had nothing to do with me. Nothing to do with me. As if my entire life wasn't just ripped out of a drawer and repackaged with a new name. She said I had no right to snoop. I said I had every right to know why she was trying to erase me. Then Kayla appeared in the doorway, quiet, watching, like she knew this was part of the plan. Her arms were crossed. There wasn't a single trace of guilt in her face. And then my mom dropped the final blow. She said, "It's not personal. You just weren't working anymore." Not working. Like I was a broken appliance. A project that stopped being useful. Something to be discarded. Swapped out. Replaced. I didn't say a word. I didn't give her a chance to explain further. I grabbed my bag, shoved past both of them, and ran down the stairs. My mom shouted something behind me, but I didn't hear it. I didn't want to hear it. I was done giving her the chance to manipulate my feelings with half-true apologies. I made it out the door and down the street before I let myself breathe. I kept walking, all the way to the train station. I didn't look back. I didn't stop. I just left. I made it to the university with 2 hours to spare. Still sweaty, barely holding it together. But I got there. Marched straight into the admissions office with my bag slung over my shoulder, and every document I'd saved clutched in my hand like a lifeline. I told them I was there to reclaim my spot, and my name. They looked confused at first, especially when I explained what had happened. But once I showed the emails and explained the IP trace, their expressions shifted. Concerned, quiet, focused. They asked if I needed to report it. I said yes. Within an hour, someone from the university's legal team had flagged the incident and told me they'd opened an investigation. They were also forwarding the information to their fraud division. That's when I knew this was bigger than just my mom and Kayla trying to play dress-up with my life. This was identity fraud, and I had proof. The staff helped me re-enroll on the spot. They fast-tracked my paperwork, reinstated my scholarship, and even found me emergency housing in the freshman dorms until the semester started. I didn't even care that I'd be living in a tiny box with a stranger. I was free. I finally let myself cry in the dorm bathroom, not from sadness, from relief. For the first time in what felt like years, I was in a space where no one was pretending I didn't exist. But it wasn't over. 3 days later, I got an email from a burner address. No name, no subject. It just said, "You're ruining everything. We gave you a way out. Why couldn't you just let go?" No signature, no threats. But I knew who it was from. The voice, the tone. It was her, my mom. She didn't apologize. She didn't beg. She blamed me, but I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded it to the school's legal office, along with every screenshot, every document, every backup I had. I haven't heard from her since. Not directly, at least. But Kayla? She made her move. I got a notification a few days ago that someone was trying to access my bank account online. The security questions had all been changed, swapped for answers only someone living in my house would know. It didn't work. I had already updated my credentials and flagged everything with fraud alerts. Still, it was clear. They weren't done. They still thought I was the thing standing in the way of their fantasy life. But now, they're the ones who should be scared. Because I'm not fading. I'm fighting. I didn't expect it to end with a knock on my dorm door. It was mid-September. I was finally settling into school, building a new routine. For the first time in years, I wasn't walking on eggshells. I had friends. I was making plans. I even started painting again. Things felt okay. Then came the knock. It wasn't my roommate, or an RA. It was a woman in a black blazer holding a file. Private investigator. She introduced herself and asked if I had a minute. I thought she was from the university, maybe still looking into the fraud stuff. But then she asked if I knew a woman named Nadine Monroe. My stomach dropped. Turns out Nadine had filed for full custody of Kayla again. But this time, she was suing my mom for falsifying information in a legal guardianship transfer, and I was named as a witness. Because Nadine never signed anything. According to the investigator, my mom had forged Nadine's signature. She'd submitted fake documentation claiming Nadine had abandoned parental duties, which wasn't true at all. Nadine had moved across the state for a new job, temporarily, and had left Kayla with my mom with permission, but only until she settled in. Except my mom took that and ran with it. She forged court documents, filed for custody behind Nadine's back, and while Nadine thought her daughter was just staying with a trusted friend, my mom was turning her into me. The PI asked if I'd be willing to testify. I said yes. Of course I said yes. But I also asked one question I hadn't let myself say out loud until then. Did Kayla know? She paused, then said, "We believe she did, but she won't admit it." That moment hit harder than anything else. Because even after everything, part of me had been holding on to this dumb little hope that maybe Kayla didn't really get it, that maybe she was just caught up in something bigger. But no, she knew. She played along. She wore my life like a costume and smiled in my mother's face while helping push me out. The trial is still pending. It could take months, but I don't need a court decision to know the truth. My mom didn't lose me. She gave me away, piece by piece, silence by silence, until there was nothing left of the daughter she raised. She thought if she picked someone easier, someone prettier, someone more moldable, she could rewrite everything. But here's the thing about erasing people. Sometimes they write themselves back in. I'm still here. I'm still me. And no one gets to take that away again.